Hello, buonasera.
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 Hello, Mr. Mowat. Buonasera.
Mr. Mowat.
Hi, everybody.
Buonasera. Hi, how are you?
Very well. Oh, so that's, let me see who everybody is. Francesco.
Francesco.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am Davide. Hello.
Davide. Okay. Hello.
And I'm Max. Massimiliano, Max.
Maximiliano. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Nice
too.
to
It's a
meet you
pleasure.
too.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a very pleasure, an honor having you with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Where are you? Which city? Are you in Milan or Rome?
Francesco is
Near
to
Milan.
Milan.
Near Milan, yeah.
Okay.
Me and Max are in Piemonte.
Yeah, below Turin.
Below Turin. Okay.
Yeah, below
Okay.
Turin.
And
you? Where are you?
I'm in Budapest. I'm in Budapest, Hungary.
Oh, yeah, yeah, in Budapest.
Yeah, working.
Yeah, we might have a question about, Budapest later.
Okay. All right, let's start. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you so much for giving us a little of your time, and congratulations for DUNE.
Thank you.
We saw it. It's a masterpiece. It's amazing. Like, really, it's something that we really needed for the theater experience. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Okay, you have the poster. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear it because we need some good news,
Yeah.
We need some good news these days everywhere, so I was so happy in Venice how everybody, we didn't have as many, the structure of it, but for me, it gave me a lot of hope because I was telling friends of mine who live in Milano, came to visit me, and they write for a book, well, it's a magazine called Italian Rev. So they came to Venice, they go every year, and they said, what do you think? And I said, I feel like movies are still alive. I think we're going to come back to it. We just are in a really bad situation for the past 2 years. But seeing Dune, not just Dune, but Jane Campion's movie and the other movies, something to Hand of God or something. But I read a couple of things. There are some movies that are really impressive that are out there that I think people want to go back to the cinema.
People really crave the theater experience.
Yeah.
Well, if we can start with a few questions about Dune.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to ask, the looks of the characters in the movie are all unique and spectacular. There are between the Mentat, the Bene Gesserit, the Harkonnen, and the Atreides.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with such iconic looks for all these different, characters from different worlds and different backgrounds?
Wow. Well, it's a huge undertaking, as when we started. So the way for me, maybe I'm a little bit different. Everybody has their process. For me, because I'm used to Denis Villeneuve, we've made this our 4th movie together where he's asked for me. I feel like I can eliminate a lot of time worrying about things that make no sense to worry about. I may as well just focus and say, this is what we're doing. And I can go to Denis and say, because, you have the luxury of having worked with a director or an actor, what they don't want, if that makes sense. Like I know what he won't like. So I feel like we save maybe a lot of time in the talking. And sometimes you just have to go, just do it, do the makeup, do the hair, do the costume, and look at it and go, it's good or it's not good. And so I found with Dune, what I did was the first meeting I had with Denis, we spoke on the phone, but the first time we met was in Santa Monica in LA, and I went to see him. The first thing was, yes, I'm doing the movie. 2, what the hell are we going to do with the Baron? What the hell is that going to be? So it was the first thing. And it's like, I'm not a big cook. I wish I was, but because I live working in hotels, so it's room service, or I go out and buy something. But I was thinking about it one day. It's a little bit like cooking, you know, because you have to know when to put the fish on, when to put the chicken, when to put the pasta, when to make the salad. And I realized with the cast of Dune, it's like cooking a meal, because you have this big character, the Baron, here, and then you have the Mentat, and then you have, you know, Harkonnen and Sardaukar, and you have all these things. But I had to think, okay, what's going to be the biggest problem? What could have potentially the biggest headache? So I, you know, of course, it's going to be Dave Bautista, David Dastmalchian, Stellan. Those are going to be the three. Then there's going to be the next thing, and then the next thing. So I kind of took it like I was cooking a meal, like you put one thing here and figure it out, and then you put it away because it doesn't film until the end of the movie. So with the Baron, to be fair, I wasn't sure if it was going to be CG. I wasn't sure, because when I went to Denis, I said to him, are we going to do this practical, as a practical makeup, which he wanted. And he loves everything to be shot in camera and practical.
Yeah.
Now I was worried because I haven't done a fat makeup before. And I thought, well, for me, I introduced the idea of Marlon Brando, Apocalypse Now, but also another movie of Marlon Brando, more than Apocalypse Now, was The Island of Dr. Moreau, because he wears that crazy makeup.
Yeah.
And that's what was in my head. So when I saw Denis, I went, no, well, I think it's this and maybe it's that. And he liked it, but we also talked about him being a powerful body, like a gorilla, aggressive.
Really imposing, yeah.
You know, imposing a vicious character. But what I kept thinking was, every time you see a big fat makeup in a movie, it's usually comedy. And so I kept saying, but you have to remember, fat is funny. It's funny. I mean, Mike Myers, Fat Bastard, you know, movies, Laurel and Hardy. I mean, you know, it's always, so it's not, and Denis was like, yes, you're right. So he then kind of trusts me enough, thank God, to say, figure it out. So I kind of had an idea. Then they cast Stellan. And once they cast Stellan, I had a very interesting idea, because I went, wait a second. My friends that work with me, Luve Larsson and Eva von Bar, are in Sweden. And guess where Stellan is? In Sweden. So I thought, everything's coming together. It's like a perfect, like this. So I sold the studio. I said, look, I need to get this fat suit made by my friends in Sweden. And everybody was like, are you crazy? Why don't you do it in LA or London, or, you know? No, it has to be like this. So Denis was like, let him do it, you know, but it was crazy because they were a little nervous, and I wasn't nervous. I felt it was I know the actor because I worked with Stellan on Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's an amazing actor. I knew he would want to do a practical makeup. Okay, so we had some things to worry about, but the good news was, in the whole thing, the makeup would be at the end of the schedule in August. So we had 18 weeks. So I had my team work for 18 weeks, creating the sculpture, the suit, the pieces, all silicone. And then in the meantime, I started figuring out Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, all the other makeup and hair and prosthetics. So that's kind of how I usually work. So I can focus on what's going to happen first and what will take the most amount of time to prepare and get approval.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Where do you from? And how did your passion for the makeup start?
Well, you know, when I was younger, I remember I probably wasn't the best student. I didn't pay attention when I should. I loved movies. You know, when I was a kid, I loved movies. I loved going to the theater. My father took me sometimes to the movies. Maybe they were too old for me. I don't know, but I loved it. And then I started to realize, I saw people's names, and I realized you could make, that was a job, you know? No, I knew nobody in the film business, nobody. And I think if you don't know anybody, you're like, what do you know? It's like saying, I want to be an astronaut. But even if you want to be an astronaut, you can find out where you go. You go to Cape Canaveral, right? or NASA or whatever. So I remember seeing these movies, and then I was in school and they were doing plays and things. And I remember the teacher made everybody do costumes or lighting. And I ended up doing the makeup, and it was ridiculous because I didn't know anything. I was 14 or 15, but I found a book, very famous book called Richard Corson's The Art of, I think it's Stage Makeup. And I was fascinated, you know, I read it. And then of course, many people read the same, you know, when you're young, everybody finds the same 4 or 5 books. And that's really what started me. I thought I was interested in costume, but I saw Barry Lyndon when I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. And I remember really obsessing about the way it looked, you know, the clothes and the makeup and the hair, all of it was, for me, was very interesting. And that's when I started to really think that's what I'd like to do. And when I started to see the names of people, I noticed always the makeup artists were men. So I started to look at it and going, I can do this job, because where I live, people were like, but men don't do make, you know, it was a very sexist attitude. And, you know,
Yeah.
but of course I didn't know, but in cinema, I mean, all the great Italian makeup artists were men, the British ones were men. So I realized there's a whole culture. It's just trying to find out, how do you get to be part of that? And it's very difficult when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, because you don't know anything. And I was very lucky that when I finished high school, I drove my parents crazy. I didn't know. I was like, should I go to art school? Should I go to fine art? Should I go to, I don't know, art history? Because nobody was teaching. And I found a teacher. He was a very nice man who was teaching film and television. And he said to me, you should be doing TV. You should learn how to do that. I don't know how you do it, but he knew enough. So I took a few courses in TV production, and I started to understand cameras. And so that's how I started.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, in movie like First Man that are set in the past, how do you important to have a reference and know how they look in the past, how they clothes himself in the past? How is important this?
I think it's everything. Certainly for, you know, First Man, I mean, Mary Zofris did a great job on the costumes, because it's harder to tell the story of something that's people that are not as famous and people that are normal, everyday people, you know.
Yeah.
Neil Armstrong, I mean, most people, if you said, what did Neil Armstrong look like? They have no idea, you know. If you ask them, what did Mozart look like? Most people have no idea, you know. If you are interested in things, I think people do know. I knew what Neil Armstrong looked like because I knew. But I think the period detail is very difficult in the makeup and hair, because you're recreating something. But I think where it's a little bit easier sometimes, I'll get in trouble from my colleagues a little bit, but I think the difference is you are still recreating something. You're not inventing it. And I think that sometimes when I first started, I thought it was very interesting to work on period things, but because you're recreating with old, you know, new material, you're recreating old things, the makeup, the costumes are amazing to look at. But I think for me now, the period things are not as exciting, because sometimes I want to work on something new.
Yeah.
And reimagine or reinvent something. So I think on First Man, what was very difficult is it was difficult. It was so subtle, you know, the way the women looked in that period, American women in that period who went to school. It's the first generation of women who went to university. They studied science. So the women were not all glamorous, you know, and I found that a little harder, because we're used to seeing period films and magazines of movie stars. But when you look at a picture in your family and you go, your grandmother, you know, your grandmother or your grandfather, that's how people looked. That's how I like to work.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of, EPs that have had a long history, and perhaps you had to take some kind of, inspiration from the past. You worked with Mr. Villeneuve on Blade Runner.
Mhm.
How was it to jump in a world that was so iconic for the past, for this cult movie, and
Mhm.
then in a way both respect the past and give it new life?
Mhm. Mhm.
How was it? How did you do it?
Well, it was terrifying. I mean, I can't lie, because I remember working, I was on another job. I was in Boston working on a movie called Stronger, and it was a very complicated movie as well, because we had this prosthetic legs
Yeah.
and amputees.
Amazing
It was-
movie.
Thank you. It was a lot. I mean, it was dramatic, powerful, very emotional. We didn't have a lot of budget. I had a small crew. We had this huge, and then in the meantime, Blade Runner was coming, and the producer called me, and I met with him, and then I spoke with Denis. And I remember I was a little bit scared, because I phoned Denis. I thought, why are they asking me to do this? It's not what I do. But I remember talking to Denis, and I said, I'm really nervous. And he goes, so am I. And then Roger Deakins, who's a very good friend and an amazing cinematographer, I had dinner with him and he and his wife one night, and they were doing it, and we talked about it. And I remember the same thing. Everybody said, and I feel, because we were all together feeling like that, and we're friends, we're genuinely friends outside of work. And I've known Roger since Prisoners, and James, Joe Walker since Sicario. I felt Patrice was, I knew from those films. I felt, well, they're okay, I'm okay. Roger told me, gave me a few things. He'd already been on a scout for Blade Runner. Then I arrived, and I was okay. I thought, we'll be okay, we'll figure this out. I had a couple of technical things, like the contact lenses were a little tricky. I had to figure out Jared Leto. I was very nervous with the girls in Blade Runner, because, again, I didn't want to go back. Blade Runner, Sir Ridley Scott's movie of Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies of all time, since I was young, very young. And it's been a reference for me since the 80s, when I started in 1984. I remember using it as a reference. Same with Apocalypse Now, for many, many years. So I was going to watch the movie again, Blade Runner, but I stopped, because I went, what? Like, it's just going to mess me up. Let's just leave it alone. Because I kept thinking of Daryl Hannah with the airbrush makeup. And I went, that was so great. And Marvin Westmore, who was the makeup designer, he just died, actually. And I remember I met him a few times, but I never talked to him about Blade Runner. I regret it, actually, but I don't think he had a great time. And he died just this year, actually. And I wrote, to his family, and I had said, how inspiring his work was. He was very, very talented. But I think even at the time, the photographer, still photographer, Steve Vaughn, who's also now passed away, I felt like it would confuse me too much to mix it up. So when I met, like, Ana de Armas is so beautiful, when we did that pink makeup, I just thought, I have to make it my own. And Mackenzie Davis, who was kind of maybe like a Daryl Hannah character, it was very difficult, because I desperately wanted to do something more graphic. But you really can't do it if it's already been done. You're only going to be copying a version of it. Does that make sense? So I thought, well, what the hell do I do? Because I can't do, like a thing across here.
Yeah.
And if I went and did it like this, it's, it's a little ghetto style, right? Copying somebody else, but making it. And so I thought to myself, I'll make it very different. We did something very different, and it worked. And I with Ryan, I mean, it was just wonderful, because there was an openness. With Ana de Armas, open, we could do different things. But yeah, I was very nervous of Blade Runner. It was, I think, in some ways more than Dune. I don't know why. In some ways I was more nervous, because there was so much. People were really talking about it. And I think with Dune, I'm more confident in it. I don't worry so much what other people think.
Yeah.
It's 5 years ago. A lot happens in your life in 5 years,
Okay. and it's my time. What was the hardest makeup you ever made?
Ever.
Ever.
You know, it's very hard to say because sometimes you think it's really hard at the time, but it's not. You just think it is because you're having a hard time. I'll tell you this much. I think sometimes the easiest makeups are the hardest. Sometimes what looks like there's nothing is much more complicated. You know, in Dune, I mean, with Timmy, you know, you think it's just super simple, you know,
Yeah.
but you have to maintain his color. You go to the desert, you go to the UAE, you go to Jordan, but you have to maintain that he's a pale, like a young prince, you know, and make him look, well, he looks young, but I mean, you need to believe he's 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I believe in the film, he was 16 years old, and then someone's change it. But I think Rebecca Ferguson, the same thing, to make it look, I think maybe The Fighter, because in The Fighter was sometimes could be a little bit ridiculous. You know, all the sisters. I mean, there were a couple of times I thought, I don't know, maybe we're going a little crazy. And then I met the real sisters of Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg's character. And I remember thinking, no, they look like that. They do. But it's a little bit funny, but it's a little bit sad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Melissa Leo. And I think that was maybe very difficult because the audience responded. I had no idea the audience would respond on The Fighter the way they did. And they did. And I thought, that's incredible. So for me, maybe that was very difficult because it was still based in reality, but the characters were slightly exaggerated. And it was a borderline, especially when you do like people like Christian Bale, he has a look about him. Also, Christian was actually older than Mark Wahlberg, but he's younger in life. And Melissa Leo, playing Mark's mother, is only, I don't know, 10 years older. You know, so those things are more difficult. In Dune, I would say, I mean, you know what, when you love it, it's not difficult. I think what's difficult is when you're working on a film you're not enjoying. I think that's when you kind of go, oh my God. But that's in every job, you know, in life, you know, if you hate the wintertime, the shoveling the snow is very difficult. You know, but I think it's very hard to say. I would say Stronger was very difficult because it was a very emotional story and it was very hard. Nightcrawler was very difficult. It was very difficult because there was a simplicity in the makeup on Jake. It was highlighting and shadow and making him look really gaunt and oily and creepy and dark under his eyes. But people were nervous about it. They were a little bit nervous to make, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal's this good-looking Hollywood guy, and you make him look a little bit messed up.
Yeah.
You can feel that they're nervous. Do you know what I mean? You can feel that the studio are going, what the, you know, we're spending all this money and you're going to make Jake, you know, another very difficult makeup. I can't even tell you how it was like, oh my God, was Daniel Craig in Skyfall.
Oh.
Because nobody ever made Bond look like a real person.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult because we made him, remember in the beginning of the movie, look really bad. Scruffy, tired, red eyes, and he gets shot, and then the thing, but then he comes back and he looks like Bond, you know, with the music and the tuxedo, and he looks perfect. But I remember it was a lot of pressure because it was a fine line of James Bond actually being a real person with humanity and feelings. And Daniel was, I mean, he's just a remarkable guy because it was risky. I mean, there are a couple of scenes in the film where you go, oh my God, what happened to Bond? But that's the point of the story, right? Everyone says he's too old, he got hurt, he got shot. But it was a very difficult makeup, yeah.
Yeah.
And for you, does it change to work in a movie with a lot of CGI and big budget, or it's no difference?
It's a big difference. It's a great question, really, because you can work on a movie like Nightcrawler, where you have very little budget, very small crew, which I love. I love it. But you have to know what you're going to do. You can't mess around. You can't play around. You have to go, this is the makeup, this is the hair, this is the costume. I think on a big budget movie, people are a little bit spoiled. I don't want to say spoiled, but I think you don't have to be as good. I mean, I said it, you don't have to be as good. I think there's room. If you make a mistake, you have the money, you can do it again. Well, it's like anything that's full of wealth, right? Anything full of wealth, but it's, again, I mean, it's like when you're young and you don't have the money and you have your first apartment, or, you know, everything you own, you cherish, right? Like your couch and your table and you know, the dishes you buy, you really are proud of it. It's yours. And you worked very hard to be there. I think with Nightcrawler, I had a very small crew and I was really proud of the movie. And I thought Jake was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal was extraordinary. He was the best actor that year. He was extraordinary in the part.
Absolutely.
To this day, you go, oh my God. Every once in a while, but I would say we didn't have CG, and we like when the late Bill Paxton, when he's dying and he's all blood and it's coming out of his mouth. I mean, I did it like in 10 minutes. I did it right there in North Hollywood on Ventura Boulevard. It was, I don't know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Bam, bam, bam. One assistant, sit here. I did it. Put the blood, did it all. And he looked great. And it was a great moment in the movie. It was creepy. And then other movies, you're like 5 hours in the makeup and, you know, assistants and PAs and the results are the results. But I would say you learn a lot on those smaller films. You learn to treasure being able to do what you do, and you have to know what you're doing. So I think some of smaller films have some very talented people. On the bigger films, you can hide a little bit. Other people can carry it for you, and you're always going to do reshoots, you know. So I would say yes, yeah.
Well,
Thanks.
speaking about, you know, smaller movies, a few years ago I went to watch The Guilty, the original movie, and you worked in the new movie, in The Guilty, that's coming out in a few weeks, I think. And
next week
was it working? And next week, yeah. How was it working on such a peculiar movie like this one? Not to spoil anything, but it's really, really peculiar. It's an amazing story. I can't wait to watch it.
It's an amazing, well, I mean, I think it goes back to the point. It's why I love working with Jake so much, because, I mean, I really love him. I really do, because he works on things I would go and see. That's the thing. It's like Denis Villeneuve makes films I would go and see, right? I would see Prisoners or Sicario or Arrival, and his first films, Incendie, come on, is unbelievable. Incendie. There's also Maelstrom, which is his first film, which is unbelievable. Incendie, you know, anyway, I mean, Polytechnique, unbelievable. So I think you find different, I mean, I think it's like that in Italy, because, you know, you had such famous Italian filmmakers who worked with the same people, you know, Bertolucci and Visconti, and, you know, you had the same, you know, and very famous makeup artists, you know, Manlio Roscetti and, you know, Maurizio, and you had all these very famous costume designers from Italy, like a culture, a very rich culture. But the smaller films are what attracted me. So I would say with The Guilty, when I read it, Jake mentioned it to me because we were in COVID and things were really bad. Everybody was depressed. Everybody was in trouble. People were in trouble, right? Everywhere, every country. And I remember thinking, what the hell are we going to do? And then Jake said, look, there's this thing, well, you know, and he was telling me about it. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I met this Danish director, producer who had done this movie, and that's what started it. And they wanted to make a film during the pandemic that they thought would be user-friendly, like COVID-friendly. So they had a conversation. Anyway, it worked because the moment Jake decided to produce it with 9 Stories with his production company, bam, everybody wanted to direct it. And Antoine Fuqua, who Jake knew from before. So I watched the Danish film and it's riveting. It is absolutely like, and it's also the simplicity. So that's really my thing, is the simplicity of great acting, of the stillness of a face like that, and the stillness, and you feel the adrenaline, you feel the tension and the pulse. That kind of was exciting. So Jake said, yeah, we're going to do this movie. And I'm okay. It's quick. Okay. We don't have any money. Well, okay, let's talk about that. And we shot this movie in Los Angeles and 10 minutes from where I live. And we made it in 11 days. It was 11 days.
11.
Yeah, and it was really, it was so well rehearsed. We had a great crew. Oh my God. The script supervisor, amazing. DP, very small crew. I think that's what I like. I think maybe for me, I could be in the same room as Jake and watch him and the sweat, and we could make it more sweater than he feels. Anyway, you'll see the movie, but it's very intense, but it's also very, the lighting is really great and the sound is great. But I really felt like it shows you what really matters on a film. What really matters to people is the sound and the music, and this close-up is about his face and the makeup, and we just cut his hair. I'm like, I don't want to mess around. Let's just have this short hair and this face. So I guess that's really what makes The Guilty very exciting, and people seem to really like it. So I'm very excited for that.
I can't wait.
Yeah. And you know, a juxtaposition of Dune, this huge film with all these huge stars, but its goal, even though we have these big makeups and big budget and, you know, 18 weeks prep on Stellan, it still comes from a place of very organic.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love the most, working with those guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, you have collaborated with many directors, Villeneuve, Mendes, Russell. What was it like working with Sam?
Well, you know, Sam Mendes, I mean, again, we worked on a very difficult film together. He's a remarkable, I mean, you know, Sam Mendes. He's remarkable. I wish I could work with him again. I think that those guys put you at a different level. I mean, working with David Fincher was, I mean, I've been very lucky and fortunate because I've worked with really, really solid directors. But I would say David Fincher, Sam Mendes, and well, Denis, I mean, Damien Chazelle. I mean, First Man is a kind of impressive film. I know not a lot of people felt that way, but I don't care. For me, it's a very impressive film. It's a moment.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Incredible movie.
I mean, for me, but I think at the time, you know, people forget sometimes the mood. You know, it's like some days you're in the mood to watch a movie, you know, a scary movie, funny movie. I think people forget sometimes the people aren't in the mood.
Yeah.
And First Man was a very hard film to make. And for me, it was a difficult period of my life. And I had, you know, it was a hard time for me. So I didn't know I would work on the movie, and Ryan Gosling said, you know, you should really come and work on it. And I met Damien, and I knew Mary Zophris, the costume designer, very, very good costume designer, and Paul Lambert, who was our visual effects on Blade Runner. I'm like, wow, I know everybody, I like them. And there were a lot of good people. So I thought, okay, but it was a real tense environment. And I think those sets that are very tense and quiet. But I got to work with Claire Foy, who is one of my favorite actors. And Claire Foy, because I told her, Claire, I'm not feeling great. I'd been really sick a few months before. You know what? Everything goes away when you're doing something you love to do. We worked a lot of nights. It was hard, and we did some very long hours. But when I saw First Man at the Toronto Film Festival, my sister came, and I remember it's like an emotional thing. I was overwhelmed. The stillness, when there was a moment in that film that I thought, oh my God, it's everything. It's life. Yeah. It covered everything. So it made you feel like you're insignificant in the world, the child, the parents, this marriage, it was this thing that was kind of like a Bergman movie, but it hits you so hard. And I remember when the movie was over, I was like, oh my God, and I think that's why a lot of people, well, I don't want to say a lot, I don't know, but I think it's why many people didn't like the movie. I think it's one of those things, sometimes you don't like things that are a little too tender. And I think, I remember my friends going somewhere in London, and I made a comment and somebody goes, oh God, that movie. But I realized it's because the movie, they reacted to something in it. And I think it's a very powerful film. So working with Damien, but Denis, I think, I've been very lucky to work, and some people you think, oh, I wish I could work with them again. Scorsese, I nearly did, but it doesn't always happen. And I'd love to have worked with him again. Just remarkable, easy. Movies are different now too, because even 10 years ago, 12 years ago on The Departed was a very different, Michael Ballhaus was the cinematographer. It was really impeccable, the people that were working, and everybody is doing the best work possible. It's changed a little bit, so working with those directors. I just met a director I'd love to work with from Nomadland, Chloe Zhao, I think is director. Jane Campion. It's different, but it's very hard to move around too. But I would say I've been very, very lucky to work with some great directors and great actors.
And let's talk about Prisoners.
Yes.
In particular about Paul Dano and Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie are at the top. How did you manage to do the makeup and the hairstyle?
Well, I think Prisoners, my colleague, Peter Tothpal, came on board to do the hair. So he gave Jake a great haircut. We talked a lot about it because it was very difficult, again, because Jake wanted to create, I'd never worked with him before. And I was doing makeup tests with Melissa Leo and Maria Bello and all the other actors. And so I was busy, but I remember thinking, well, this should be straightforward. Well, I was wrong because Jake arrived with this big beard and long hair. And I really had to get to know him. So I said, look, let's get rid of this beard because you're not having, there's no way you're having the beard as this cop. Let's get rid of that. And then we started, and I had Peter. We talked about sort of the character having elements of, we said like Russian, but elements of like Russian gangs, maybe.
Yeah, the tattoo on the hand.
Prison, a kid maybe from an orphanage or the foster child. So we went through a lot of ideas, and that's where I really learned how to work with Jake. And I think he trusted me enough to say, you got to lose the beard. He wanted all the tattoos. At first, I don't love tattoos in movies. I think it's been done too much. I just think it's done too much. And after a while, the audience are like, oh, it's tattoos, so who cares? How about not tattoos? But Jake was right. In this sense, Jake was absolutely right. So we did this wolf based on Russian folklore. I found some very interesting things, Russian folklore. We did a tattoo on his arm, but the studio wouldn't approve it. So they CG'd it out of the movie because they felt like maybe it was too Russian. It was too maybe potentially damaging.
Yeah.
So the studio were nervous. Paul Dano, so I did the first makeup test with him. I did the best I could, but I wasn't going to do a prosthetic makeup. I really believed from Denis we could do this makeup to make him look like he was like really beat up.
Yeah.
Teeth and maybe eye, whatever. When I did the first makeup test, I was under a lot of pressure because I could tell everybody was sort of looking, and I thought, oh, I thought he looked pretty bad. Denis wasn't sure because Zero Dark 30 was coming out or had just come out.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a worry about doing a very brutal makeup because of the torture aspect.
Yeah.
Of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people were, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And so we did the first test with Paul Dano. I gave him a broken nose, a small prosthesis, teeth. Anyway, I thought it was a very good makeup. I was very happy. And we went to shoot it. And then everybody was kind of maybe not sure. Maybe we had to go more. And I was really stressed by it because I went into this room and it was the producers, Denis, Roger Deakins, a lot of people, maybe 7 or 8 people looking. And I've never in my life been under more pressure to have all these people look. And I remember looking around going, oh my God. And everybody, well, I think it should be this. I think it should be that. What do you think? What do you think? And I think at that point, Denis said, look, what do you like, should we try? And I said, yeah, let's try. We'll go even further. We'll do a cheek. We'll do an eye. Now we had time, of course, because again, that makeup only plays for 3 days. So we went back to the lab and I had one of my team, Mark Neiman, rebuild it and came back to Atlanta from LA and we tried it. And at that point, what I suggested was that we have a final stage, like the first couple of punches when Hugh Jackman, you see him and he looks kind of crazy. So we had like 3 stages. The first time when Jake's with him, he looks a little beat up. Then you see him again and the nose is gone, broken. And then when Viola takes it off. So that, a lot of people really liked it. Some people didn't. Some people were like, wait a sec. But I think the reaction was really correct. You know, it was a correct reaction. I do think if I were in charge, there was a scene we had of him being taken away in an ambulance, all wrapped up. And I personally wished we had that in the movie. But that's only from a makeup design point of view, because people forget that we put so much into it. Sometimes you feel like it would be nice to see the end result, but you don't see Paul Dano at the end.
Yeah.
So, but it was a very remarkable experience on that film. And it was a lot of work. And I just don't know if I could do that anymore because every actor had something, you know, and Jake especially. But it was an incredible experience.
A great movie. I watched that. I was quite young, and I remember that Paul Dano and Jack Gyllenhaal, amazing, amazing. I'm scary now to watch the movie. It's beautiful.
Well, I wanted to ask you something about the aspect of Dune. An aspect of Dune that is quite interesting. There was in 1984, I think, another Dune movie.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, by Mr. Lynch. And have you watched it before doing the makeup or starting to create the makeup for this movie?
Well, to be honest, I mean, to be very honest, because of my experience on Blade Runner, when I knew Dune was happening, I had a copy of the film. I had a Blu-ray and I put it on and I started watching it. And it's exactly the same thing that happened on Blade Runner. I stopped because, I mean, what they did is what they did. And it's apples and oranges. It's 2 different things. So I thought, well, that's what they did. And respectfully, everyone, we're making something else. And I felt like I remember, because the thing that I remember so well, and it's what was interesting for Dune with the mentat, was the stain on the lip.
Yeah.
And it created a lot of confusion, because when I watched a little bit of it, I remember getting stuck on that. You know, you start to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And I started looking at the stain. And that's actually when I stopped watching the movie.
Yeah.
And Bene Gesserit, because I mean, we didn't do that. We did something else. And that's okay. And he changed some of the characters. So when people see the movie,
Yeah,
their characters are different. So I thought, why am I watching this? Because it's going to make, you know, anyway. So I stopped. Then there was the TV, a mini series.
Yeah.
Television. Now, recently, an Italian makeup artist, and I forget his name right now, wrote to me, and he worked on the first Dune in 1984 in wherever they shot. Was it in Italy or where was it? Malta? Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll have to look. He wrote to me. So he must be my age or a little bit older, saying, "Oh my God, good luck. I heard you." And, you know, I was 21 years old on the first Dune, and I recognize the name because there's so many great Italian makeup artists. Fantastic. So when I heard the name, I went, "Oh my God." And he did write to me, and I thought, that's really, really nice. And I wrote back and I thanked him very much. But it was really respectful, because I think we both I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to hear, you know, and I think that's how I approached it. So I looked at a few things like the Harkonnen, what they were, what this one was, but we changed things up a little. So one day, and I'll make it a very short story, but one day I was sitting in the office. We were just arriving and unpacking everything. And I had all the pictures of the actors up on this wall. And sometimes I'm just staring and I'm kind of like, what the? And I was doing this. And I kept looking at a picture of David DeSmalchin, and then a picture of Stephen Henderson. And I went, well, they're both mentat, but one is Harkonnen, or is he, or isn't he? So I went upstairs to see Denis, and I'm like, you know, knocking on his door and going into his office saying, you know, and I'd be confused. And then you take it too literally, and you have to say, stop. This can be whatever. It's a fantasy. I mean, it can be whatever. It was like Dr. Yui with the tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I did it, but we looked at a lot of things. And again, simplicity. We were shooting with Charlotte Rampling on the soundstage. There was water, mist everywhere. Rebecca Ferguson and Charlotte. And I don't know what, I got an email from one of my crew saying, when do you want to meet so-and-so? And I said, let me go talk to Denis. And as it was happening, and I saw all the black, and I went, well, why don't we just do like the simplest, just that diamond? And we photoshopped it. I went to Denis, and he goes, that's what it is. And that was the beginning of saying, why aren't we doing a tattoo for the mentat? Why are we going to try wine? Like, what the? It's a terrible idea, because the audience won't know what it is. All this purple, except kids, you know, when kids eat a candy and they get their mouth, right?
Yeah.
And I thought the audience will think somebody just ate a candy. Like, great. And so we tried everything. And that's what made me think of doing a blackberry, the color of a blackberry, as a tattoo, and it's put on there. And that's what happened with that.
It looked perfect. And hearing you talk about Dune makes me hope that a sequel is greenlit soon and you come back as well, because
I hope so.
Finger crossed.
It was so amazing, and you're clearly so passionate and had such a unique and great vision for the movie. I'm sure we all hope the sequel comes soon.
I hope so. But you know, sometimes, you know, you can plan, and I never worked on the film thinking of the sequel. Sometimes it's funny because, you know, we were going to do a sequel for Dragon Tattoo, which I was very sorry we didn't. I was so upset about that. I think we should have. If I were in charge of the world, Sony, I would have done it. I think it was a mistake. We didn't. And we were going to do a sequel to The Fighter. And I think that was a mistake. But I hope for that. I really hope. Because Sicario, I couldn't do the second one. But I don't know if that was really a sequel.
Yeah.
As a separate movie. Because it was a great experience. But I think it's Denis creates great experiences. He creates an environment. I'm not going to say it's always easy. I mean, you know, good things are not always easy. It should take, you know, but when you connect with somebody like that, you want to go back again. But I would work on anything. If he was going to direct, I don't care I would go do it. You know, it's like certain actors. If somebody said, well, if Jake said to me, I'm going to do this, you know, I would work with Claire Foy. I would work with, you know, there's a handful of people I think, you know what, I'll just work with them because what they do is very interesting. And I think that's how you have to look at it. So I know when we were shooting, there were a couple of times I had to think, I remember working on Timmy one day and thinking, well, if this were, what's going to happen? Oh, we're going to, you know, they're Fremen now. So I found that very exciting. And when we did the additional photography is the first time I thought about it because I was doing Rebecca, you know, we had the tattoos and when people hear this, it's already going to be out. So, but that's a vision and Josh Brolin. So in the vision, I thought, well, there could be some very interesting things we could do with her. And Rebecca, I mean, I think there's a lot actually as a part with Timmy, with Zendaya. So you know, Javier Bardem, I mean, in a heartbeat, if they said we're doing a sequel and whatever, I would do it. Absolutely. But I don't want to get my hopes up either if things change and they say we can't do it, you know?
I see.
Okay. Is there a director you would like to collaborate with?
Well, yes. I mean, like I said, Chloe Zhao, because Nomadland was, for me, was just a revelation, the simplicity, the beauty of that film. And there's not a lot of makeup in it. I mean, that's why I think sometimes films that I love, it's like I like animated films, but there's no work for me on them. I love it with the Academy being on the student films or animated films. I love to see other people do things they love to do. I met, when I saw Nomadland, I remember thinking, but there's no makeup element in it. But it doesn't mean you don't want to work with someone. I think if she were to do a film with a real makeup element, I'd be very excited to work with her because Nomadland is, it's the only film last year that I saw twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
You know,
I can understand why.
Yeah.
You know, Jane Campion, the piano is what, 30 years ago? I've never recovered. I thought the movie was, and it had the look of it, the makeup was very important to that film. I don't know. I'd love to work with David Fincher again. I would love to work with him again. It's been a long time, but you know, Damien Chazelle, there's some new. And for BAFTA, I'm very excited when I see new and young filmmakers because I think they need older people like me to help them. And so I love to work with new people and young people. It's so important to get the next generation working, that we can, you know, be part of. That would be very exciting for me.
Yeah, thank you.
And stay on Dune topic. How was work in the desert? In
Jordan? Well, you know, the first part of it was okay because we were in Jordan. And it was maybe March or April, so it wasn't too hot. And it was exciting. And it was very physical, you know, up and down. We were 45 minutes from the base camp into the desert in Wadi Rum. It was exciting. It was exhausting. It was hard work. and the makeup trailer was very far. And so we did, you know, and I had a pretty small crew, but day to day, you know, doing Josh Brolin, Timmy. So I do all the time, Timmy, Rebecca, Josh, Javier Bardem for me on a daily.
Yeah.
And then Dave Bautista, but he's later. So we break it up a little bit, but the desert was fine. I think when we finished the movie, it was just Rebecca, Sharon Brewster, and Timmy. We were in the UAE and it was hot. It was August. Oh my God. Whew, that was 40 degrees. So I would say that was not my favorite thing. You can't even think you're so hot, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's I love the desert because even in California, you know, I was raised in Canada, in Montreal and Toronto. So I mean, obviously we don't have that, but it's interesting because I think when you go to very cold weather up north in Canada, there's a similarity in the vastness of it. And it's quite beautiful and it's cold and icy. But in the desert, I really feel good. I actually feel like a real connection. So I love in California, I love driving in the desert or going to Arizona or New Mexico. There's something really, I really love about it, which is the strangest thing because I'm not connected to it growing up in it. But I really love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, for me, it's time to go because I have to go to my wife and my baby. So I have to go.
Ciao, Davide.
Mr. Mowat, thank you so much.
Ciao.
It was a pleasure. Ciao.
Grazie.
Yeah.
Grazie.
We will take.
Grazie a lei. Ragazzi, andate avanti voi.
For having me.
If you can talk about it, about Moon Knight.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when is this going to be out? When will this be seen?
How the experience, when it's coming out, whatever, anything you can say about it.
I don't know
you know.
when it's coming out. I know we're almost finished. We finish next week. That I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been interesting. I've never worked in streaming, almost new media, not so new media, we call it. I've never worked in it. I worked in television when I started. It's been, I don't know, 25 years. So Oscar Isaac asked me to do this, and I really like him so much. He's such a good actor. Pardon me, from Dune, and I've seen his work over the years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we talked about it, and here I am. So I came and I'm working. I have a crew that I know from Dune and from Blade Runner. And so it's a very different way to work. It's 6 episodes. He's a very interesting character, so I really enjoyed the makeup on him. We have some prosthetic makeups, not a lot, but it's a new thing for me, and I'm really happy I've been able to work during the pandemic. And it's, you know, we have, like everybody, we wear the masks and everything. It's a little exhausting, but I'm really glad I did it, and I think people will enjoy it.
Yeah. We surely will. We're very excited for that as well. With the cast, with the team behind it, it sounds like a really, really amazing project, even a unique one.
I think it's fun, and the one thing, you know, is yes, it is what it is, but you know, it's a certain kind of character. But you know, there is a lot you find, and I've worked on one Marvel with Jake actually on Spider-Man. You know, it's look, as for me, I mean, in the end, I just do what I do, and I run the department, the makeup, the prosthetics, the hair, and I get a team of people who make me look good. And even like some of my team from Sweden came to help out to make some pieces. And, you know, I think I'm very, you know, people, you're not always working on what you want to work on, but if you're working in a job you love, it's, you know, it's like the cherry on top of the ice cream, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to complain about? You know, it's not always, it's very hard to be away from home. There's a reality, the hours, but I will say the hours on this have been very good. They're not like 15 hours. We're doing 11, 12 hours a day. So for that, I'm very thankful. We're doing 5 days a week, not 6. It's a tough business. It's why so many people get so stressed because you're working 6 days a week sometimes. It's very difficult. And I think that that's the part of the business that has to change, has to change. So for me, the COVID, the pandemic, it brought us talking about this. And I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Like, man, your colleague just go and see his wife and child. It's fine. It's real. It's real life. It's important.
Yeah.
More of us need to do it. More of us need to do it. So.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing these details about, the show.
My pleasure. Please let me know when if you need anything.
Now, and this, I think that I go to watch for the third time something at
second
cinema.
for me. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Maybe
to everyone watching, go watch Dune on the biggest screen possible.
Yeah.
It's an amazing movie. It's incredible, and we need those numbers up for the sequel.
Yeah.
So, please go watch it.
Yeah.
I really hope so. Thank you so much. You're very nice.
Thank you, Mr. Watt, for joining us.
So much.
It was
my
amazing.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Arrivederci.